You have no idea the amount of ignorant mess we're about to get into right now.
Sit your $5 ass down before I make change.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Black on Black Cinema. I'm your host, Jay. I'm here with my co-host, Micah.
Hey.
And Tiara.
Hey.
And we have a special guest, someone who is the most accomplished person we've ever had associated with any podcast that we have done.
That's 100%
the past
true.
10 years.
I'm going to need y'all to elevate your game.
Nah.
She is a veteran sports journalist, currently a general editor and director of the Roden Fellows Initiative at ESPN's The Undefeated, and a journalism instructor at the School of New York Times, former editor at both Sports Illustrated and The Athletic, former Howard University, the real HU professor, and a co-host of the Truth, Lies, Shenanigans podcast. Welcome, everyone. Elizabeth.
Whoop, 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 whoop. Hi, everyone. Happy Sunday Fun Day. Thank you for having me. I am a movie nerd, so I'm excited to be here.
Now,
Excellent.
for those of you that don't listen to Truth, Lies, Shenanigans, I guest on there maybe once a month, and I bring movies, suggestions for people to for the group to take a look at and review. And undoubtedly, every time I come on, I pick a movie that Liz just does not feel.
That's not true. That's not true. I liked Billie Holiday.
One.
Or, as I call it, Lady Sings the Blues. But I liked Billie Holiday. I liked United States versus Billie Holiday. That was very good.
All right. Well, 1 for 5 ain't good.
You like that? You really like that Denzel movie? That was garbage.
Which one?
I think The Little Things. Is that what it's called?
I thought it was fine. I didn't like
all the talent.
That movie is so bad.
You could see the stank on her face. Like all of that Oscar talent wasted.
I didn't hate that movie. I thought it was fine too. I liked it. All right. So yes, thank you for joining us, Elizabeth. We appreciate it. All right. So this is episode 205, Miss Evers Boys. Look, this is a review of Miss Evers Boys. I have to say that, for our folks on YouTube. This can be watched in many places, especially on YouTube, if you simply just Google the title, but you can also watch it on HBO Max as well. This is the 1997 made for television film. But don't let that, as far as like, I know the stigma of that, don't let that scare you as to like the quality of this film. It's actually surprisingly, I think much better than that. This is starring Alfre Woodard, Laurence Fishburne, Craig Schiffer, Joe Morton, Oba Babatunde, Ozzie Davis, and E.J. Marshall. This is basically kind of a narrative retelling of the Tuskegee experiments, right? Through the eyes of a nurse, Nurse Eunice Evers. Who she is playing, Alfre Woodard is actually playing, she's a real person. That was a real person, by the way. So it basically follows the Tuskegee experiments from 1932 to 1972. And we thought that would be, a pretty good topic to talk about, considering what's going on today. So I'll start with Micah. What were your overall thoughts on the film?
Yeah, I enjoyed the film. The cast is amazing, and it's they're heavy hitters in terms of actors, and I really enjoyed all the performances. It's a sad story, and but it does an effective job of explaining what the actual Tuskegee experiment is. Like, a lot of people think that like the government gave them syphilis. Like, no,
Got them up with syphilis.
That's not what happened at all.
No, that's not what happened at all. What happened was just as despicable. But it is it's a pretty good movie, but it's not something that I would be like. I would recommend people watch it, but like maybe watch it once Like, it's not one of those things that'll be in like heavy rotation. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
oh, you see that Miss Evers boys movie? Man, I've seen it 5 times.
I can't get enough.
But I did enjoy it.
Yeah. Tiara, what are your thoughts?
I loved it. It didn't feel like a made-for-TV movie at all. It also kind of felt like it could have been released today, considering how older some of the actors looked. I thought it was. I definitely had conflicting feelings about Eunice, especially as time went on. And while I was watching it, I was reading Alfre Woodard's interview on her in 1997 when this movie came out, and her and I were kind of on like the same page. Like, girl, why did you stick around for so long? And it made me wonder, like, is she a villain or is she kind of a protagonist? But I don't know. But I loved it though.
Yeah, I think that she's easily the most interesting character, right?
Yeah.
Like where she falls in the whole thing. Elizabeth.
I won't be watching this again. So yeah,
fair enough.
It's kind of depressing.
It is. Elizabeth, what were your thoughts?
I felt shame and guilt, ashamed of my people. I thought she was a villain, a very humble villain, but a villain nonetheless. And throughout the entire movie, I kept looking at her and, Joe Morton's character, like, do you guys not have a conscience? Like, where is your soul? Especially, as she is consistently seeing the effects of these men, these test tube experiments, if you will,
Right.
Who haven't been treated, who are losing their sight, they're losing, use of their limbs, they're mentally going crazy. And I'm just like, how do you live with yourself at night? Like, yeah, she cried a couple of times, but I would just be so torn up inside. And as soon as, and Laurence Fishburne looked good in this movie. Like,
what a random thing. I'm really disappointed. By the way.
Yes. Well, because we're used to blackish Laurence Fishburne right now. But
Right.
This went back to like not Boys in the Hood, but a little bit after that, where he was still kind of fine. And so when that moment when and maybe we'll get to that, when we dissect the movie, but when he, asked her, what lie, I wouldn't have been able to hold that in. Like, all right, bruh, I love you. I'm going to tell it. I'm going to tell it all. I'm a sinner. I'm a liar, and I'm a sinner. So yeah, I think it's a movie, like Micah and Tiara said. I think it's a movie that people need to see, especially if you don't know what really happened with the Tuskegee syphilis study, if you will. But did I like it? No. I love the cast, though. The cast was amazing. Like when Ozzie Davis came out, I was like, okay. I was expecting Ruby Dee to show up for a second. But yeah, I felt a lot of shame. I felt a lot of shame and guilt for my people.
Yeah, no, I think those are all like super fair points. I thought the movie, again, like the sort of trope is like, oh, it's a made for TV movie. This is going to be hot garbage. It wasn't, right? Like, and that should say something, right? And I think it's because the cast is so incredibly good. I mean, Alfre Woodard, Laurence Fishburne, Oba Babatunde, Joe Morton, like that alone is like that's a murder's row, right? Like all four of them are incredible actors and they all put in 100% in this and in everything, especially Joe Morton. Like he don't even come in. He's like, is this about, can I get an Oscar? Like, no, this is for TV. He's like, nah, fuck that. I'm going for an Oscar anyway. Like always, right? So I really appreciated their level of seriousness and like their level of work in the film. I mean, it's horribly depressing to watch these guys go from like bright-eyed and like fun, characters into like literally dying in a bed while going blind and still
drinking turpentine.
Right.
Drinking turpentine.
Yeah. Right. Like, so like the shift of those characters or sort of the, like, I don't want to say an arc. It's more of just like a spiral down is sad to watch. But it is very well done, right? Especially for what it is. But the thing about this movie that I think Tiara's point of like, this could be released in theaters today is for the obvious reason, right? Like there's so many people who have such a misunderstanding about what the Tuskegee experiments were that it's probably a really good idea, which is why we wanted to do it. Like, you need to see this. You need to see, as much as it's painful to watch these things, it's painful to watch slavery narrative films and stuff like that. But it's so easy for people to have a misunderstanding about true history and sort of get like piecemeal information, which we'll talk about. And, you know, putting that together in the modern day, right? Like that sort of mistake happens a lot. So it is good to see it. The other thing I will say about it is it's like a weird thing in like movies that came out at this time that were like historically based is everything has a haze to it, which drives me crazy. Like, hey, it's the old South. Like, okay, but why is it so hazy? I can't see anything. It's like fog everywhere. It's like anytime you see, that's just, I guess that's the visual of it just being hot besides people sweating profusely. They're like, just put haze over shit. Like, so besides that, I thought it was very well done. And like, you should see it. But again, like Micah said, like, this is not going to be like, oh, you got to put this in the rotation type of shit. But it does, you know, I did a lot of reading about the Tuskegee experiments, which we'll talk about like outside of this, because the movie gives you a good, you know, like a good boilerplate of what happened. And then I want to talk about like obviously stuff that's going on today, and like we are conspiratorial people and we are for a reason because of our history, but that doesn't mean you have to stay in a box. Like that's the dangerous part. So yeah, I thought it was great performances all around. So we can just walk through.
So the film begins with Eunice Evers reciting the nurse's oath at a Senate subcommittee hearing in March of 1973. And she's testifying about the Tuskegee study. Not a fan of putting people in old people makeup.
That's a bit weird. It's a bit weird.
I don't like it, especially like in the 90s when it didn't look as good.
She was 44.
Nah, yo, they were just like, put an old lady wig on and a hat. You're like, come on.
There was one scene in the movie where she looked like she and Ozzie Davis, her father in the movie, were the same age.
They were, right. Yeah. And that was after like 20 years.
Are you talking about what he called her a young woman after?
Oh, she was cutting wood? I'm like,
Yeah.
Like, bro, she's 68 years old at this point. And he hasn't aged a day the whole time. Hilarious.
We flash back to Tuskegee Hospital in Macon County, Alabama. Do better, JTD. And in 1932, Nurse Evers and Dr. Brodus are operating on a young boy, and they save his life. Basically, this is just a setup like, hey, these people know what the hell they're doing, right?
Yeah, he gets kicked in the chest by a mule. I'm like, this is the most Alabama shit I've ever heard. God damn. Jesus Christ.
That ain't happening in Baltimore.
Nah, we're not running behind mules in high school. Relax.
A couple of days later, Nurse Evers and Dr. Brodus pick up Dr. Douglas, a white man, from the bus station. I found it funny that he had to get a sip of water and just, follow those rules, I guess.
All the black dudes are like, nigga, we know which one you want to pick. Knock it off. He was like,
but he also acted surprised when he saw the colored fountain. It's like, bruh.
Yeah, it's the 1930s.
Come on,
right?
South.
Like, wait, now where is he from? He's from DC, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
I think he's from DC.
Right, so it's like, hey, I'm a northerner. I don't know what's going on down here. Like, yo, you're in DC, yo. You're not in Canada. Relax, relax. And it's like you said, it's like 1928 or whatever. Like, come on, stop it.
So Douglas tells Brodus and Evers that a lot of black people have syphilis. I don't know if you know that. And Brodus is like, yeah, no shit, dude. Like, our hospitals are full because our patients are black and the white hospitals won't take them. Mm-hmm. Brodus tells Douglas that there's no evidence that syphilis is a black disease any more than it was a French or Polish disease. And while they're talking, Douglas is quick to exclaim that, well, I voted for Roosevelt. So,
that again.
My best friend is black.
Right. I mean, it's kind of wild because it's like, white people really haven't changed that much on like their moves. I would have voted for Obama 3 times. Like, relax. Like, yo, this is in the 1920s, and they're like, nah, but still, I fuck with Roosevelt. Like, chill. So it's just hilarious. Like, oh, we got all these new ideas.
Those white people.
Yeah, like, no, I'm not with them. Come on. Like, nothing changes. It's hilarious.
You're like a different sect of white people that black people don't trust.
Right, that's all it is.
So Dr. Brodus questions Douglas if he plans to tell the patients that they have syphilis. And he's like, oh, and
Why?
Ms. Evers is like, well, maybe don't use the word syphilis because, like, these dudes, they don't know what that is, right?
Got bad blood.
Right.
Got bad blood.
Yeah, just say you got bad blood. And the way she broke it down, I forgot how she broke it down, but she was like, well, your blood is kind of bad and it makes you, it's going to make you.
She said they used bad blood to like talk about pretty much anything that was wrong.
Yeah, it's a catch-all.
Yeah.
And but the way she was describing what syphilis is and what it does was just amusing to me.
Oh yeah, how it's a bug that
there's a bug in your private parts, and then you might spread the bug from your private parts to another private part, and we just trying to make sure that you better, baby. That's all.
So
Now-
do you guys remember Sanford and Son?
Of course.
Where they had the two
Tiara don't.
officers?
She's 12 years old.
I'm 12.
Tiara is like 22
Tiara,
years
how
old.
old are you, girl?
I'm 30. Almost
God.
Almost 30. Almost.
30.
Tiara,
I'm 29.
Tiara's.
I'm a grown up.
You won't even believe it.
I have purses. I have Gucci purses your age. Gucci purses your age. Oh, she's young. But I'm glad that she's here and able, to participate in this conversation. But on Sanford and Son, remember there were two cops, Hoppy and Smitty. One was white, one was black.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so the white cop would always, when he was explaining stuff, he would always give like the technical academic version.
Right.
And Lamont and Fred Sanford would be like, and then Smitty would give the hood version. So that's what that was.
Yeah.
That's what Alfre Woodard was doing. She was giving the hood version,
So
had to relate to the folks.
I mean, so I totally understand that. And I don't doubt that that's like 100% true, right? Like, these are people who are largely uneducated. Like and it happens a number of times. The doctor is like, and then I'm going to give you a spinal tap, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, back shots. That's it. Don't say nothing else.
They're living a rural, life. Like they're farmers. They're, they're not, not to say that they're not educated or smart.
They're not formally educated.
Exactly. But they're not a part of that life.
Right.
So I appreciated that, she gave a little Sanford and Son there. I love that.
Right. And look, again, I'm sure that is very true. And it's, that's true to the story and everything else. And I actually don't have a problem with it, but it does go to the sort of this, infantilizing of these black men. Right?
Yeah.
Because they are always treated. I mean, Laurence Fishburne's character even at one point calls it straight out. He's like, they're not children. Like they're colored, right? Like you don't have to talk to them. You talk to them like they're men, right? You just like, you might not be able to use a technical medical term or whatever. Spoiler, not just black people don't understand that shit. Look at today, right? But that's not the problem. It's talking down to them. Like you don't have to talk down to them. Like, look, hey man, you got this disease and this ain't good. It's curable and we're going to try to help you. Like you can say that. You don't have to be like, oh, you just got a bug, everybody. Like you don't have to talk to us like that. And it goes to this idea, and it's partially Eunice's fault, Eunice Evers' fault, but it's also just a sign of the times is that we, even then as black people, we assumed that other black people couldn't understand things, right? Because we were taught over time, slavery, like what Kenya Barris, like, because slavery for almost fucking everything. Like we have been taught to talk down to even our own people, which is a problem, right? And she does that a lot in this movie, and that's where she becomes kind of a villain in a lot of ways.
And they commissioned. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tiara.
I was gonna say, like, she did that to Caleb when Caleb was
absolutely.
Like, I wanna know more about it myself. And she's like, no, the book is too technical. It's basically saying like you won't. He even said like you don't think I can understand, and then she's like, okay, well, I'll make sure that you get the book.
Right after he called her up.
The white doctor, at some point after a while, that's what they expected of her. Like, It was like, okay, Eunice, well, you know how to talk to him. You know what to say to him. You know how to break it down so they'll understand. And so she after a while just accepted that role. And I think she started to do it, automatically without thinking.
Right. Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. And that's a little scary, right? Is she is conditioning them to understand or to be put through these things, but she's only doing it because she has also been conditioned to do that, right? And that's a very dangerous role, and a lot of Black people have been led down really horrible paths, not just medically, but in a lot of ways, education wise. Like if you go back to our episode we did on small acts, right? That series. There's the education episode, which Mike and I did. Like they literally use this idea of, hey, your son this is in Britain in the 70s, right? It's like, or 60s, like, hey, your son isn't smart enough, or he's got behavior issues, and having Black people tell them that, oh, we'll put them in this better school, better for them. But it was actually a way to just move Black people to these other schools that completely destroyed their lives, right? And it's using Black people as the messenger to push more racism. Like, we have to be very careful about that. Just because you're, as the saying goes, like, just because you're not everybody who's your skin folk is your kinfolk. Like, that's true, right? And it's not even, like, from her perspective, it's not even, like, evil. She just was conditioned to push that shit.
She's not doing it maliciously.
Right. She's not.
Like, she
not at this point, no.
Not at this point. She is so much, she has blind faith.
Exactly.
I think that's even more dangerous, though.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because if you're not cognizant of how you are coming across to people and how you are a detriment to their existence, to their survival, just because you're trying to play both sides and shuck and jive a little bit, that's dangerous. That's dangerous because then you have no self-awareness and you are easily susceptible to what these white folks are trying to get you to do.
Right. I mean, look, we do have to be fair, right? Which I guess we have to be fair. But
I'm not being fair to Eunice.
Right.
I'm not being fair.
Right. But we do have to be fair to Eunice only because of the time, right? We have to remember that this is the late 20s. Like, we're not that far out from slavery. Like, we're not, like, it is not that it happened in 1492 only and was over, right? Like, so that idea of beating that into the heads of Black people to take those, like, especially, I hate to say this, and I'm not trying to be an asshole, but like taking things on faith at that time, that's a big part of who we are. Like,
well, it's still a big part of who some Black folks are.
Right. Not me.
Conversation for not me.
Right.
That's a conversation for a whole other day.
But like that's it. But that, that's an elephant in the room, but it is real. Right. And we do have to be honest about that, is that idea of like this authority, like, hey, we're going to look out for you. Take this on faith. And it's like, okay. It's sad, but it's true.
About Jay, the idea, because Black women historically have been known to be overly protective.
Yes.
Of Black men.
Yeah.
And so, what do you think
Thankfully.
about the idea here that she kind of wasn't? Like, in some respects, she thought just being there for them in their final moment was her protecting them,
right.
When in reality, she really wasn't. So what do you think about that concept? And
Well,
I get that it's a part of the sign of the times.
Right.
But I go back to what I kind of jokingly said at the beginning of the show. Like, I'd like to think that I would have said something.
So what I would say is, I don't think you're correct. Like, historically, Black women are incredibly protective of Black men. Like, thankfully, right? As much as they were literally allowed to be.
To their detriment.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely
now,
to their detriment.
Even now. Right.
Like, look at the Meg Thee Stallion shit. Like, I don't want to call the cops because that dude shot me. Fuck that dude.
I did a whole lesson at Howard on that nonsense.
Right. Like, but that's a historical thing, right? That's built into us and built into Black women. So when I say us, I mean Black people. But like, so I do understand. What I would say though is, I don't think that she just saw it as her responsibility or her duty or doing the right thing by them at their deathbed, right? Like, though that is like very obvious, I think, like she says a number of times, after she realizes like what is happening, she feels so guilty about not saying something. She feels stuck, right? And she's like, all I can do is is just be there and try to help what seems like her friends. It seems insane to me, like watching it with 2021 eyes as a black person who did not grow up in this area, who did not grow up in the world that in which they grew up in. It seems crazy to me. And I'm like, even the white senators are like, what? Like, even they can't even believe this shit. But that, like, we have to give a little bit of grace to her, I think, because I just cannot imagine what that perspective is like, right? She's looking at these dudes who she's known and watched for 40 years. And she's just like, I want to be there with them.
After her. They named their group after her.
So, like, and that's the thing, is like, you watch and you're like, Eunice, what the hell are you doing? But it's like, I think her weird old school obligation to like, I gotta be there. Cause if I'm not there, who is there to protect them? Who is there to at least be a kind face to them? I don't know. Like and that's the thing, is that's why I give Alfre Woodard a lot of credit, because that's a hell of a role to play. Like, you're going in playing someone who's supposed to be sympathetic, who in some parts is not sympathetic. I don't know. Like, it's a difficult role. So
yeah, she won an Emmy for that. I mean, the movie itself won 5 Emmys, but she won a I think Best Actress Emmy for this particular role. She was excellent. She was excellent. I also, I'm a daddy's girl, and so I had a very close relationship with my dad, who actually was born in 1920 and was, my dad was 54 when I was born. So he was old, and he was in World War II. So this is kind of his era. He grew up in this. His sister, who I'm named after, she died of the whooping cough at 15, because there was no vaccines at that time. So I have this kind of stuff in my head, but throughout the movie, I kept looking at her and I'm like, I don't even think I would have been able to keep that secret from my dad. Like, no way. I could have.
No way.
I would not have been able to. As soon as he started questioning me and giving me, the 3rd degree, I would have been crying in his arms. Daddy, this is what happened. Oh my God, we lied.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. Yeah. There's a lot that she was holding inside.
Yeah.
To a lot of people, from a lot of people. And I think that's another thing that should be explored. Like, I'm surprised the directors didn't have her give, or didn't show us more of a breakdown from her.
Yeah. Like
it's in spots. It's in spots, but I agree with you. I feel like I would have gone crazy, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I feel, she's taking on this burden of caring for these people, knowing what she did, not what she did, but what she's witnessing. Right. Mm-hmm. And I can't be a bystander in certain things. Right. Like, again, this is me. I am in 2021. Right. I have no idea what I would have done back then, but I don't know. I feel like they did a pretty admirable job of showing the conflict in her. But I don't know.
But also, like, it's not like she had much of a choice, right? Because you still had Dr. Brodus, who kind of made her. It felt like he tried to guilt trip her a little bit.
100%.
That's who I want to talk about.
So it's like,
gotta blame the black man. See, we ain't do nothing.
Daddy Poe. Want to talk about Daddy Poe?
Yeah, Papa Poe fucked up. He fucked up a lot.
I think I have a little bit more sympathy for Eunice, because it seemed like she really thought she was doing the right thing, especially after she realized she was going up more of those hills that she kept on talking about. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what I would have done in that situation, especially as I saw how my friends just ended up dying, or especially like with the Willie character, was probably the most sympathetic out of all of them. But Dr. Brodus is definitely no hero here.
Is he ever a hero? Does he ever play a hero?
Look, man, look. I'm not going to sit on episode 205 and talk shit about Joe Morton, because I don't need him to make a speech. No, I don't need Joe Morton. I don't need Joe Morton to write into the show, or do a video into the show giving a speech that would just ruin my whole life. I don't need that. I love you, Joe Morton. I do. You can come on the show.
Joe Morton plays killers. Did you watch Scandal?
Of course. And the second,
Jay only watched the first season where she was like, "Earn me."
nah. I saw a couple seasons. When Joe Morton got on there, it started. I was like, all right, this is like Star Wars. Y'all need to relax. This is ridiculous.
I do wonder though for physicians at that time who wanted to do things for the greater good, especially for Black people, to be put in a position where you need the resources and people are telling you, we will make sure that you get everything you need in 6 months and then a year and then 2 years. Where do you draw the line?
Right.
Because as a professional, you're already being seen as less competent than your white counterparts. You already know that that you're also fighting an uphill battle. So that conditioning, it's of course with Eunice as well, but also with Dr. Brodus.
Right.
At some point, he even had to compromise himself because the way he acted in that meeting with those public health officials, at that moment, he should have been like, no, that's fine. But that's easy to say when you already have like 1,400 patients who you're trying to treat and trying to save lives. And then here you have white people dangling the promise of funds that eventually never come for like 4 decades.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about Morton's character, right? Like, Brodus is equally weirdly sympathetic too, right? Like, there's a line that we got to get back to the timeline of the movie, but there's a line that one of the white senators says in the latter part of the movie, and he's like, we're not trying to blame you guys. Like, we're not trying to blame you, Eunice. And it's like good because it kind of sounded like y'all were like a little bit, but. And it's that point of like we recognize that like white people fucked up, and we also recognize that you guys were kind of pressured into this, right? And that scene with Brodus with the public health officials, and you're just like, they're taking advantage of this dude. And his whole thing, whether it seems genuine to you or not, is like, I am trying to do what is right for my people. But the problem is they boxed them in, and they were like, huh? You want the penicillin? Sure, you'll get the penicillin. 2 years, 5 years, 15, 20 years, I don't know, but you'll get it. And there was no way for them to get it otherwise. They're in Podunk, Alabama. They're not getting that vaccine or that penicillin. They're not getting it. You have to drive to like a northern city and like get as much as you can and drive it back on a truck. Like, how are you going to get it? That's how segmented and weird this country was in that time frame. And it weirdly is not that different now in a lot of ways. So he is stuck. But at the same time, he knew that he was subjecting Black people, his people, to these horrible situations. But he was trying to do it for the right reasons, right? Like, but this is just like, that is post-slavery Black American history. Like utilizing Black people against other Black people, weaponizing. I shouldn't even say utilizing, weaponizing Black people against other Black people. That is like textbook, right? You dangle this promised land kind of thing, and they go, oh, okay, I'll do that. And then they just keep moving they keep moving it away and away and away. And meanwhile, we suffer underneath of that. So it's not a surprise, but yeah, he's not a clean character, and he's not purely evil either. Like, that's what makes them so interesting.
I like Eunice. I needed more conflict from Joe. Like, we got some conflict with Eunice. We got very little conflict, inner turmoil about what was happening from Dr. Brodus. And so that's why I was just I don't feel sorry for you at all. I do think that he guilted Eunice in a lot of ways, with the subtle interactions, the subtle conversation. Like, he always talked to her very calmly. And that can be intimidating when sometimes that can be even more intimidating than someone shouting at you, especially if it's your superior, someone who you admire and you think is, very smart, very astute, and they're talking to you in a very calm, and they're trying to explain things to you. I think he was very manipulative in that way. I think if the director, at least for me, if the directors wanted me to buy into him being the least bit sympathetic, I needed more conflict from him.
Yeah.
I needed more conflict from him.
Yeah. I'm not against that perspective at all. That makes sense.
But I love Joe.
Yeah.
We don't always plays the villain.
We don't need it. We don't need a video, Joe. We don't need a video of you reciting like a crazy scree against us. We don't. We love you here.
I'll say, like, during the Senate hearings, like, he definitely looked like he didn't have much remorse.
No, he really didn't. I was like, come on, Joe.
Or when he was taking her or trying to guilt her over the guy who drank the turpentine because he turned it on her about the penicillin injection. I'm like, bruh, you know good and well that had nothing to do with penicillin. That fool drank turpentine.
Yeah, like come on, dog. Like he had a whole can. Like knock it off.
He also did the thing that doctors even today do, where they weaponize their profession by saying, like, "I'm the doctor. I know everything."
Yeah.
When you know,
you're just a nurse.
Yeah,
you're just a nurse.
Exactly. When nurses they sometimes know more than the doctors.
You know the whole adage, right? Like, I'm the son of a nurse. The whole adage is like nurses treat, doctors diagnose, right? Like, hey, I think this is going on. Okay, yeah, but anyway, I'm out. I got a golf trip. And then nurses do the actual work. Like, 'cause that's true, right? Like, nurses do the actual care. So, yeah, that sort of doctor nurse thing in a negative way happens a lot. Absolutely.
I like how all of this, we are shit on the black people and haven't talked about that evil white devil.
Look, all the white people in this movie are devils. Right? That's all the movies we do.
I don't believe for a second that fool went to the Cotton Club. I think he was lying the entire time.
Oh no, he ain't go. I saw his dance moves at the end.
Right? Willie called him out. He was like, bro, you a better doctor than you are a dancer.
Like, stop lying. Oh, who you see up there? What's a famous black person? Oh shit. Bojangles. Like, all right, man, come on now. Come on, stop it. Knock it off. All right, Micah. Let's go.
So we're still in first act, and Eunice is sent around town from the government, or she's sent around town to tell people, hey, the government is going to treat you for free. And all the black people are like, nope, no, they're not. No, they're not, yo. No, they're not. She eventually comes across three men in an abandoned schoolhouse, Willie Johnson, Brian Hodman, and Big Ben Washington, who eventually agreed for treatment, although Brian is still like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Brian is the turpentine guy, if you remember.
He might have had a good point, though.
Apparently, he had a real good point. They mentioned that they have a fourth named Caleb, played by Laurence Fishburne, and Evers knew him from childhood, right? Like he liked her as a kid. What do you do when you like someone as a kid? You assault them, apparently.
Exactly.
She confronts him. They kind of make up, and she convinces him to go to the clinic for treatment. And soon, a lot of other people come. At the clinic, the white doctor explains to the patients what they're looking for, and Evers is like, "Nah, yo, like, nah, we're gonna treat you right. We're gonna do good by you, baby." Right? She breaks it down
like somebody good ass aunt. Yep.
Meanwhile, Willie, Brian, Ben, and Caleb perform at a talent show. I forget the name of the talent show, but they perform at a talent show.
It was like they were trying to win a Victrola. The grand prize was winning a Victrola.
And like you said,
yeah,
Elizabeth, they named themselves Miss Evers boys because they trust, they like, respect, and trust the local nurse. They win the talent show, and on the way home, Caleb tells Evers that he read this medical book that we spoke of earlier. He said, "I think I got some of these symptoms, syphilis, I think it is," and she asks Caleb, "Hey, don't tell the guys what they got, because I'm trying to." And see, you're right. It's stuff like that where it's like, "What you doing, Eunice?"
But I mean, and like, again, I'm not caping for Eunice, but like that's what she was told to say, right? She was told not to. That was the whole thing, is they were told not to say anything, which is fucked up.
The men are given a mercury rub treatment in, I guess, what a 1930s circle jerk looks like.
That was so weird to me. That was so weird to me.
So, no, but hold on a second, because it's real weird, but it's real weird for multiple reasons, not just the circle jerk aspect, which is.
I can't believe they got like black men to actually like do that.
Yeah, no, I like that. Look, right, like I'm like, wait a minute. You couldn't in 2021. You couldn't get 20 or 10 black strangers.
Shirtless dudes oiling each other.
Yeah, come on, dude. Like, nah, bro. I just died from syphilis,
DMX
yo. I don't need it.
Even if we squash the beef, I ain't touching your hand.
Nah.
Get out of here.
Nah. We're way too homophobic for that shit. Like, as a community, we're way too homophobic. No,
Unless
relax.
they play sports.
Nah.
Yeah,
Even
it's like,
No.
oh yeah, give me your ass, bro. Good job.
Y'all will be surprised at all of the homoerotic activity that
I would
goes
not
on
be, because
on
those people are the
sports
loudest protesters. I would not be surprised at all. But okay, there's a couple of reasons why it's weird besides the touching thing. But which is funny. But it's Mercury. Like, okay, one,
She's just slapping it.
she's just putting it on. And if you notice, she don't ever touch the mercury because it's mercury, and that's bad for you. It's a carcinogen, right? So like, just rub it on, baby. But y'all rub it on each other. I'm not.
Keep the rhythm going.
Right. She like rub it in deep. I'm like, yo, that's mad cancer. You're just putting it all on this dude's back.
Was that known back then?
And a paint.
No, definitely not. But it's just wild. Like, everybody rub mercury on each other. Y'all not going to use no kind of gloves? Okay. Well,
Ote.
yeah, I was just like, that is a terrible, like, medically, this is a terrible scene. Like, people are like, the Tuskegee experiments were terrible about syphilis, but also mercury. This is a part that we're not talking about enough. I just found that funny. And she was just like, I'll just put it on. I'm not going to touch you. Like, so, yeah, don't do that. That's a terrible idea.
Douglas tells Brodus, the white doctor tells the black doctor that the program is being canceled because of lack of funds. And Brodus tells Evers that he must remove her from the program, because you got to cut costs. Miss Evers refuses to go back to her old position because, somebody replaced her and she don't want to take that woman's job.
See, that's fair. That's fair.
That's noble, but I need to work.
I guess.
See, y'all really ain't shit. God damn. Y'all gonna throw that other woman right out of job.
What you want me to say?
Right.
Look, shit rolled downhill. You in the valley. Sorry. Move. I need a job.
So Ms. Evers works as a domestic for a while.
Which is basically what her mom did.
Her mom did. Worked as a maid, and her dad is like, "No, we ain't sending you to nursing school so you can be cleaning up somebody's toilets now.
This ain't the help.
Yeah, get out of here."
I mean, his sort of refrain about that throughout the film is interesting. I mean, like you said, everybody has their own burden to carry, right? Like, I mean, obviously he thought better of his daughter that he wanted her to do this, but like I get it, but also like maybe don't just like shit on people who are domestics, yo. It's like 1932, dog. Like, there's 4 jobs for black people, right? Like, that's it. Like, sorry. Joe Morton got 1. There's only 1 black doctor the whole town.
Here's where the movie gets interesting. Brodus meets Douglas in Washington, D.C. to meet with members of the Public Health Service. And Brodus is told of a study in Oslo, Norway, that studied white people with syphilis. And the feds want to perform the same experiment on black people. The feds are like, oh, well, black people have the right to die a horrible death and let us
freedom
happen.
Freedom.
Yeah, I was going to say freedom.
Okay.
Brodus questions the idea of the Oslo study because it was done in the late 1800s and there was no fucking cure. And the Public Health Service members was like, but
their faces. Oh my
mad guilty, yo. Mad guilty.
No, like that's the thing. There was nothing in their face, like on their faces. They didn't have any like remorse or any like thought of what they were suggesting was so inhumane. They were like, yeah, we want to do this. So are you gonna say yes? Or are we gonna?
He literally said, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
Right. They're black.
And I was going to say that takes it back to, having power over the Negro.
Yep.
Right.
We aren't human. We're subhuman. We aren't people. We have no feelings. We have no emotions. We shouldn't be treated, the same as a white person. Therefore, if we want to do an experiment, that's nothing. That's science.
Right.
That's science.
We're cattle, right? We have been seen as next to cattle.
We're just a control group and an intervention group and data and nothing more, nothing less.
Right. The same way you experiment on cows and pigs is the same way they sought to experiment on black
And shout out to the guy who said, I vote for Roosevelt, who was like, yeah, this can help our project. Yeah,
liberal whites coming in right when you need them. Thanks.
Hey, think about it. They didn't even go to poor white folks.
Right.
No.
That's how far down deep in the ditch we were as Black people. They didn't even go to poor white folks. Because truth be told, poor white folks get a bad rap in this country as well. Just not as bad as we do.
Yep.
Just not as bad. So the fact that they just automatically were like, you know what, Black people are expendable. We can, do this experiment.
Yep.
Not a big deal. That speaks volumes. Speaks volumes.
Well, and the old adage of just, kind of weaponizing poor white people against poor Black people is like, that's as old as this country's ever been, right? Like, that is what they do. Why we use poor white people? We can just watch Black people die and suffer, and then we'll help white people, and then we'll just all keep moving up, right? And we don't care if it kills a bunch of Black people. We don't give a shit. Like, it's fine. So, yeah, I mean, this idea of them dangling this treatment in front of him, right? This is this is where we get the sort of the United States government is going to allow Black people to die, or as people who are very uneducated about this, directly killed Black people. It was more of just like, let's do the laissez-faire perspective, right? On our death. This is where people take this and then run this all the way to modern times with like vaccines, right? Like this is an important, place to talk about it, right? So by them saying, hey, we're just going to watch what happens, is one of the most objectively horrendous things I've ever heard, right? Because you're talking about at a time where they're literally working on a solution, and soon after this, they find one. And they're like, nah, fuck it. Like,
keep going.
But like, why do we need to keep studying if it affects Black people differently? You have something that can help them. Like, we don't continue studies on how to cure polio in Puerto Ricans if we serve and fixing polio for everybody. You just give Puerto Ricans the vaccine. Who gives a shit? Who cares? We figured it out. Like, you don't keep letting people suffer. But the United States government at this time was just like, I don't know. Let's see what happens, right? This, like, it is not that crazy to think that they would continue a study from Europe. From the time frame, look at where the time frame we were in, right? Like, experimentation during the war and everything else from Nazi Germany and things like that were very much a thing, right? So, like, this idea of Europeans experimenting on people that they were conquering and killing and everything else is very real. So, yeah, they're probably like, well, we got this expendable group of people here. Fuck it. Who cares, right? No one's going to think it's morally reprehensible, because like, we saw it as morally reprehensible when Germans did it to other Europeans, but white Americans doing it to Black Americans, we had them in, chattel slavery for fucking hundreds of years. Who gives a shit, right? Like, that's the mentality. So it's not surprising that the U.S. government would have that perspective, because for them, it's a sympathetic perspective. Like, we're just trying to fix this, so who gives a shit? We got these people we can utilize, which is horrible. Like, right? This is unbelievably horrible, but it's not even like this isn't 1492. This is a time that we still have people who are alive now who suffer through this shit, right? Like, that's fucking nuts.
Did anyone else watch this and wonder, where is the data? Like, what information are you collecting? Like, I never saw, if they were talking about an experiment. I mean, in the movie, it talked about 10 years, but it was actually much longer than that, because penicillin was approved and created 15 years into this.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But in the movie, I never saw anyone writing down numbers or stats or, any documentation of what they were actually learning.
Well, I think really,
brothers.
I mean, I think really the only statistic that they were figuring out is How many died? Right? Eunice gives that, like, of these 399 people that we had,
And how
there's
they
so many
died,
people
right?
died. Right.
Right.
Like, that was really
The
it.
symptoms,
Yeah.
like what the symptoms were in comparison to what the symptoms that the white people had.
The
of
Norwegians had.
Right, because
In
at
a
in this weird time frame, well, not even in this time frame, because people thought that like black people like were physiologically different from white people,
Yeah,
right? Like
absolutely.
less resilient and shit like that. Like there are people who still believe that like black people don't get sunburns.
Listen, I can speak on that. So I used to live in Finland, right? And I love my Finns. I will never, talk down or talk poorly about my Finns, my experience there. However, when I lived in Finland, I was an exchange student from 92 to 93, a little over 15 months. Back then, there were no black people in the entire country except for the few Somalian refugees and then my ass in a town of like 5,000 people. They had never seen a black person before in their life. So they wanted to know why my hand wasn't the same color on both sides. They wanted to know, they never understood or believed that I could tan. I mean, I know I look pasty right now, but I tan very well when I'm not quarantined. They were shocked because Finland has a lot of lakes. And so a lot of water, that means a lot of mosquitoes. They were shocked because they thought, black skin is tough.
Yeah, it's
so the
impenetrable,
mosquito,
right?
exactly. So it's impenetrable. So
Yeah, you're like Luke
mosquitoes
Cage.
wouldn't
We get
bite
it.
me, whereas I walk out, I am covered in red splotches. So I can attest to that.
Yeah,
Especially, since Norway is a part of Scandinavia and there's a disconnect about Black people and Black culture. But that's another thing about the experiment. They didn't take into consideration the demographics. Like Norway is completely different than the United States.
Yeah.
The
It's
temperature, the
completely
culture,
different.
geography, all of it.
Right. But it's also completely different than a lot of Europe. Right?
Right.
Like you can't just say, well,
north.
white. Like, no, dude.
It's near the North Pole. Like
Right.
I've been to the Arctic Circle. It's completely different.
Right.
And so, now granted, again, we're talking about the 1930s and 40s, but these people just never took any of those things into consideration.
Right.
It's like, okay, we got white folks over here, but we can do all of this to the Black people.
That's
in
exactly it.
America.
Yep.
So let's see what we can get. Let's see what we can find.
Right.
I just like throughout the movie, I just kept expecting to see some type of chart, some type of notes being taken. None of that.
So,
None of that.
Well, they're waiting for them to die. So
Yeah.
they can do autopsies.
We got that one mention from Dr. Votis being like, we have 10 years worth of data. We can't stop now. We haven't reached the endpoint. Then the white guy's like, yeah, the endpoint is, an autopsy.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
That
it
was
was like-
horrible.
yeah, he's not
And
so
Eunice
good as a
will
people
say-
doctor as he said before. Like, no, you
And
really
Eunice-
aren't.
Eunice was right there when they said it, and she's just still
You're
saying
right,
it.
doctor. I'm sorry. But I mean, so here's a statistic, by the way, like a real world statistic. 399 of the patients in the real study, not the movie, had syphilis. There were 201 in the control group. 100. It says the study continued under numerous public health service supervisors until 1972, when a leak to the press resulted in termination on November 16th of that year. By
They've
then,
still been doing it.
yeah, 1972, dude.
Wait, you
1972. It's crazy.
You said that that it was leaked to the press.
Yeah,
The study.
yeah, and that's
One who leaked it.
it wasn't Eunice.
Not Miss Evers.
It definitely was. She was like, "Y'all tell him, be quiet, stop snitching." Says by then, 1972, by then, 28 patients had died directly of syphilis. 100 had died from complications related to syphilis. 40 of the patients' wives were infected with syphilis, and 19 children were born with congenital syphilis.
That's another thing that kind of pissed me off because they really didn't get into how contagious
Right.
this
Right.
was, and what the spouses were exposed to, what the children were exposed to. Like this was, like dominoes. Like
Right.
dominoes.
The only time they really touch on that is the relationship between Laurence Fishburne and Alfre Woodard, where he's like, you trying to like go to bed? And she was like, yeah, you good.
Yeah.
You good. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
As fine as he
Like-
was, like once he confessed that he had the syphilis, we're like, nah,
You're like,
bruh. Nah, bro.
You said I was good.
Nah, bro.
Not that good. Not 100%.
I know you get the placebo. So no.
It's like that's all you getting.
Honestly surprised that they didn't show any of her boys being like just completely pissed off and distrustful of her, other than Caleb.
I kept expecting that.
Yeah.
I kept like,
but maybe that's not the experience.
Deathbed, I thought they were going to call her out,
right?
And it never happened. Like they rode with her until the end, and that's even more sad.
Yeah, it is.
That's even more sad.
Yeah.
So, Brodus reluctantly agrees to this study only if they call it the Tuskegee study of untreated syphilis in the Negro male. I would not want my institution's name on anything.
But you call it something else, dog.
Anything.
What would you call it, Micah? What would you call it, Micah?
I would call it, here's my resignation. I'm finding another job. I can't do this.
I'd be like, nah, call that the Morgan State University study. Don't call it Tuskegee. You good. Go to another HBCU. I got nothing.
Get out of it.
I'd be like, yo, take it somewhere else. You good.
All right. Well, here's your cue to drop in the thing.
All
okay. Right. Dr. Brodus welcomes Ms. Evers back into work, and he explains the program to her. And she's baffled. It's just like, wait, what? You want to do what? You don't want to treat them? She's like, nope, that's just not what it is. And this is, to your point, Elizabeth, this scene was the insidiousness of the way that Dr. Brodus was talking, right? He was just very calm, and they went to go treat a young man, and he's just like, all right, now I'm going to treat you now because the doctor's always right. Ain't that right, nurse?
Right.
Right? And it's just like, hey.
Yeah, you shut your ass up. Agree with me.
Right. And it's just like, nah, like it's at that point, I'm like, in the one scene, I'm like, all right, maybe he was kind of boxed into a corner. They kind of appealed to his, ego to try and get him to do this. But now it's just like, I'm right and you're wrong. Right, nurse? Right? And it's just like,
literally looking
all right,
down
dude,
on her.
like, you really, you're not, I'm not liking you right now, man. I'm really not. And, yeah, it was a fine bit of acting from Joe Morton.
He's a very intimidating person. Like his cadence is very intimidating. I'd be like, you right, doctor. You got it. Sorry. I'm just a stupid nurse. I don't know anything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Everything is going to be okay.
You got it.
Yeah. Eunice ends up telling her father that she doesn't know if she wants to continue working there. And he explains the situation. And her father thinks that he should listen to the doctors. But, ultimately, you got to do what you got to do, right? Like, every person has their own burden to bear. She writes a letter of inquiry about a position upstate, and then goes out on a night on the town with the boys. And while there, she has a heart-to-heart with Caleb. And I think at this point he was like, the men are lost without you. And she's just like, all right, I'm a stay.
Yeah, she can't help herself. All right. And these poor men die. It's fucked up. Yeah, they got their own little Soul Train line going. It's not very good. Anyway, but everyone seems to be having a good time. Look, I love Alfre Woodard. I really do. I generally love her in everything because she puts her heart into all of it. Look, this whole idea that they have the scene right after of Dr. Brodus and the evil white doctor. I don't remember his name. Let's go with like John.
Dougie Fresh?
Douglas, yeah.
John Devil. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I mean, they're basically, this is where they kind of bully Eunice into giving her answer on how do we convince these people to let us do spinal taps.
Spinal tap.
Yo, like, I don't know if people have ever had a spinal tap or have known anyone who's had a spinal tap. It ain't a back shot, yo. It's not a little needle.
Screaming that was real.
That was very real. Oh my! I love that scene. They were like, that first scene, those dudes were like, nah. And the second one, they were like,
nah, bruh.
Peace.
Nah.
I'm out.
So,
No.
Alfre Woodard is Willie. I mean, gosh, my heart. Like the whole.
He's
movie.
such a great actor, man. He is.
I'm like, this poor man who was with her basically for the rest of the film, and just still never lost faith, kept dancing and until he couldn't. It's just
He literally danced at his friend's grave.
It was sad.
It's fucking horrifying.
Willie had a dream.
yeah.
Like the whole point of Willie's existence in this is that he had a dream to get to New York, to go to the Cotton Club, to dance and make something of himself. And that just was so sad to me because we all knew it was never going to happen.
Right.
It was never going to happen. I kind of did the small part of me that didn't like Willie. He reminded me of the Nicholas brothers. And my dad was very old. And so I watched a lot of Stormy Weather when I was little. I've seen that Nicholas brother dance scene 1,000 times. And it reminded me of that. But one of the Nicholas brothers was not a very nice person, Dorothy Dandridge's ex-husband. And so Willie kind of reminded me of him, but I had to separate that. But the fact that he had this dream that he was till the last moment that he was holding on to, even when he was trying to recreate what he thought Dougie Fresh told him he saw at the Cotton Club, he was trying to recreate that on the stairs. He's falling down the stairs, but he still thinks,
right.
I can do this. I can do this, Doc.
Yeah.
Just give me more time, Doc. And that was very sad because you don't want to spoil someone's dream. You don't want to stomp on their dream. Something that they've been living, they've been working on almost their entire lifetime. And you have to think about, what if he had gotten the penicillin at the same time Caleb got it?
Right.
That moment when Caleb came in, in the uniform, again, looking fine, in the uniform, and Caleb says, I got penicillin. And Willie figures they find out that the hospital has given out the names of the people.
Yeah.
In that moment, you're just like, could he have been saved?
I always had a moment like wondering when he realized he was never going to make it to the Cotton Club. And that he was never going to get better.
Don't know that he ever did. I don't know.
If he probably lost his mind before.
Right. Like,
realized that.
Because that's one of the sort of long haul issues with syphilis is that you have a mental degradation.
Drink turpentine.
Right.
Yep.
Oops. It's. I'm not sure he ever realized, and that to me is tragic. Like that's super tragic, right? So I mean, look. Let's talk about it because it's obviously the big elephant in the room, which is our people having this this reluctancy to take the vaccine, right? In the modern era, right, for COVID, like. There are people who are dying. There are people who are suffering long haul issues and who will continue to suffer long haul issues because they refuse to take the vaccine now. Like, where is your sympathy meter? Mine is on like right at E let me rephrase that. It's, how like you're driving a car and you see a car and doesn't have any gas and it's actually past E. That's where I am for like conservative white people. I'm like way past E. I don't give a shit. Like whatever. Oh, is it sad? I guess. I don't know. But black people is getting close to E because like we are doing so much damage to ourselves. And I don't want to give up on us, right? I don't want to give up on those black people who could use this and help them and live perfectly reasonable lives, but they are putting themselves in such amazing risk and putting like my family at risk. And you know what I mean? Like, so it's not just like a single situation. So like, where are you guys with like empathy for folks not taking vaccines? It's 0. Okay. All right. Just so we're clear. Tiara, you said that you think everyone should wait because you don't trust it, right?
Shut up, yo.
The government is trying to kill us. To quote Tiara.
I think I have like a tiny bit of sympathy because I read I read stories every day on purpose of people who
On purpose. Like, what's wrong with me? On purpose.
I like these stories make me really sad. People who fucked around and found out, who waited too long, and they leave behind families. And my heart, it breaks for their families, and how, you know, all they had to do was get a shot and they would be right here doing whatever they wanted to do. But there are times when I see how these cases are going down, and I see how hospitals are filling up, and I read the stories of healthcare providers who are way past burnt out and have seen so much death over the last year. And then I'm like, nah, this is you're the part of the problem, and I don't feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
So it changes.
Yeah.
Barely, but it changes.
Yeah.
And also,
with your exactly zero.
I guess we're going to get into about like how people are referencing Tuskegee as a reason to not get vaccinated.
That drives me crazy, dude. Like, you don't even know what you're talking about.
So I feel like if the government really wanted to do Tuskegee, we would have probably kept the Trump administration, who just would have let COVID run rampant, and then, you know, what they tried to do.
And you wouldn't have all these white people taking the vaccine.
Thank you. That's my big thing. What do you think they're thinking it for?
First indication. If they give it to the white folks, okay, then I'm good.
Right. They didn't say, hold on a second, black people, y'all got to go to CVS. White people, y'all go to Dwayne Reed. Like, they didn't say that. It's fucking dumb. Come on.
So up in Oakland, right? They had a code specifically for black and brown people in the Bay Area, especially those with chronic conditions. White people abused that code so much they had to shut that program down. And I'm like someone who's at risk, because I tried to get a vaccine because of that. I was like maybe one day outside of being one of those people who could have gotten the vaccine like when it first rolled out. Well, because of that, I had to wait like a couple extra months because white people kept on jumping the line and taking advantage of these programs. And these are rich white people too. And it's not just up here. The white folks in LA and other rich areas were purposely trying to take away these slots for people of color and people with chronic conditions who try to get vaccinated. That should show you
everything. Right, but that should tell you is real, y'all. Like, come on.
The same shit here in DC. So I too, I'm immunocompromised. I'm a type 1 diabetic.
What?
So I'm a
oh shit!
Oh my god!
I take like 6-7 shots of insulin a day. Okay, and
y'all friends. Yeah, look, y'all got it.
Yeah. Diabetic as well.
Yeah, I am. You guys are
diet buddies.
Diet buddies.
I was literally taking insulin on the show.
Oh my god! So So that looked like Humalog. Was that a Humalog pen? Oh my god! See?
Yep. See? Mike did this on purpose.
I did.
No, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I think people who don't understand what we go through on the daily with diabetes really don't get how, like, I have to monitor what I eat every day. So you really, at every moment of every day, I'm taking shots all day. I'm checking my blood glucose levels all day. So you really think I want to be exposed to this nonsense? If I get COVID, in my head, I'm going down, and I'm going down hard. And so, and I've said this to Micah, on when he's joined our show, I really have not left my apartment that much in a year and a half. CVS is right across the street. Safeway is right across the street. I DoorDash. Okay, yes, I'm a functioning alcoholic, but that's a whole other conversation. But I get my liquor delivered.
Yeah, like an adult. Like an adult.
I don't. Like this past year and a half, I have not been out in the streets. And so to see people who are just so lax and who just think, oh, it's not a big thing. I'm not going to get vaccinated. I'm going to be in your face. I don't care about you because I feel like my rights are being violated, that I can't go to a party, that I can't go to the bar. I'm just like, I could die. I could die.
They keep saying my body, my choice. And that really just...
that
pisses me off.
Look, I'm gonna need conservative. I'm gonna need conservatives to like.
No, but this is the thing.
Don't try to borrow that. Like that shit's unacceptable.
White conservatives say this,
but also the thing that people don't.
Anybody
COVID
like
it's like death isn't the worst of COVID. Like we had someone on our show on TLS, Micah, 2 weeks ago, my friend Lauren in New York. She's been dealing with long haul COVID for the past year.
Yep.
There are days that she is so debilitated. She can't move. She can't get out of bed. She can't breathe. We had we have COVID Chronicles on the TLS show. One of our guests last year, he had 3 fingers amputated.
Jesus.
He was on a ventilator in the hospital, had several strokes, was on a ventilator for 14 days.
Right.
Thankfully, he survived. But COVID isn't just about, okay, you live and you don't. There's a lot going on in between.
Right.
And I don't think as a community, we get that.
Right.
I've had friends die. I've had friends who have been on ventilators. I've had friends who have been asymptomatic. It just runs the gamut. But I'm not willing to take that risk. I'm just like, you guys, I understand I'm my biggest fan. I'm going to be the only person that champions for me, but I need a little help from my community.
Yeah.
Like, y'all know better. And a lot of people that are talking about, I don't want the vaccination. Those are the folks who are out in the streets just doing whatever.
Right. Like, if you don't want it, look, I'm not cool with it. Stay home. Just stay home.
Right.
Stay home. You can anti-vax at home.
Yeah. I mean, and also like your friend who got his fingers amputated, he counts in the this person did not die column, because people keep on saying like, well, there's a 99% survival rate, which that I don't think that's even true. But you could be someone who needed a double lung transplant, like that guy in Florida, and still not die, but still have long COVID symptoms. I mean,
and now, by the way, that person immunocompromised forever, right? Because he's a organ transplant recipient. So like what drives me a little crazy is this idea that we are just going to let people suffer, right? Like black people, look, I was thinking about
children
this
too. Children too.
Don't get me fucking started. Please don't get me started. I haven't, like, Mike and I both are dads, like, of young kids. Like, I will get so angry on this episode. I will. I don't want to talk about that. But like, what drives me crazy is just this idea of people saying, I want to go back to normal life, but you're not willing to get a vaccine and you're not willing to wear a mask. How do you think this is going to go? Right? Like it doesn't really make any sense. And look, I was thinking about this. I was driving the other day, and like the thing that, like, our history, black people's history in this country is, and actually across the world, but specifically here, is bathed in blood, in disappointment, in horrible treatment.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like that is inarguable, right? But anyone being serious, it is inarguable. But what is, and people go, well, how could you have this pride about your own people? You see them treated this way, and historically it's just fucking horrendous. But the thing that I personally love about us is that our resiliency, right? Like, we have been able to get hit and take that hit and keep moving. Like that's just who we are. We've had to grow like that. We've had to. I wish we didn't. I wish we had fucking great lives. We could sit down, put our feet up, and everything be fucking great, right? I wish we were treated that way. Right. I would love it. I would love it. But unfortunately, that is just not our history, right? But our history is that resilience. It is pushing back against those things, and it's to be able to get up and keep moving. How in 2021, if you even know a semblance of that history, would you sit there and make it harder for us? Why? Because what? You heard some dumb fuck rapper tell you not to wear a mask or not to get vaccinated because you don't actually understand how vaccines are created? They making it up too fast. Other vaccines took 20 years. Do you understand how vaccines work? Do you? Right? Like,
vaccines that took 20 years were almost a century ago.
Thank you. Right. Like,
yes.
I work in a building that, like, science happens. It drives me crazy. Like, stop talking like that. The polio vaccine didn't come out 10 years ago. That's fucking nuts, right? But like, the other part to that is, like, it's not hard to do, I do all my own research. Who are you Googling? Like, where are you Googling things?
And
that's usually the kicker.
I'm a journalist, I have to be on, the internet all the time, but it's a gift and a curse.
Right.
Because you have all of these people now who are, immunologists, because they read a story on Google.
These are the same people who are
Doctors,
Afghanistan
experts.
experts, right? They're also Afghanistan experts.
They read a headline. They read a headline.
You're absolutely right.
And sometimes not even the whole headline. They're like, nah, it got cut off. I just read the first half. I got it. Yeah. Good.
I can't emphasize enough, and this is, I think, where all of us are allowed to take it personally.
Yeah. Now fuck these people.
I have to protect myself. And so I do not want to be around you if you are not educating yourself, if you're full of misinformation and you pose a threat to me. Like I cannot. When we talked about, the message of this movie and how it offered some truths about the Tuskegee experiment, the syphilis experiment, I had to school my students last year because a lot of them came in, and these are 17, 18-year-olds, so they're dumb, they're young and dumb,
right?
But they came in with all of these steadfast positions, like, oh my god, I would never get it because the Tuskegee, they were giving us this. I'm like, baby, that the whole point is they didn't give us anything,
right? They didn't give us the cure.
They didn't give us anything. That's the whole point.
Right, that is a wild perspective, and you said it perfectly, right? I hadn't thought about it in exactly that language. The whole point is that they didn't give us the cure that they were using on everybody else, and now it's here's the cure, we're giving it to everybody. Nah, fuck that. What are we talking about? What are we talking about?
Is that we are the group of people, or one of those people that really can't afford to continue to fuck around.
Thank you.
And it's just I wonder if people have run a scenario in their head. And for me, this is my worst case scenario, that I get COVID and I go to a doctor and I don't get the treatment I deserve because of the color of my skin and my gender. What if a doctor doesn't listen to me?
Which is a real thing in medicine right now.
That happens today.
Right.
And so for me, I'm like, I would rather just not get COVID, or if I'm gonna get COVID, I would rather be vaccinated.
Yeah.
Not have it.
Right.
That's an option. I'd rather not have it.
And also, to the point, and I'm totally going to bring up diabetes again. This is
no, here we go. Every week. No, I'm kidding.
But when you do have something like diabetes, it's already hard to get doctors to listen to you, because you are the person who has to manage it day in and day out. I know my body and my health better than anyone else. It is frustrating to meet a doctor who says fuck all of that.
Right.
I don't want to put myself in a position where I end up in the hospital and my blood sugar skyrockets, and then a doctor doesn't know how to take care of me.
Also, too,
she's speaking of that.
We tend to be, as diabetics, hypochondriacs. If you're a good diabetic, if something happens, the least little, fluctuation in your everyday routine, you're like, oh my God, I have something. I must have convinced myself I had COVID 5 times this year. 5 times. And again, this is coming from someone who never leaves her apartment. I'm like, I got it. I got the COVID.
It's coming through the walls, y'all.
It's coming through the walls. I have a cat. I'm looking at my cat. I'm like, he's a little lethargic today. Oh my God, my cat gave me the COVID.
My cat.
I'm crazy about it. But it pisses me off that as a community, we've taken this lax conspiracy, and I hate conspiracy theorists. Again, topic for another conversation.
No, it's not. We talk about it right now. No, it's not. It's not time for a different conversation.
Your conspiracy could potentially kill me.
Yeah. Well, now it's killing them.
But wait, guys.
Good.
You can still get COVID even if you get vaccinated. So why get vaccinated?
Again, so at my job, I have all of these life experiences.
Yeah, I had a conversation with someone at my job like that. I was just like,
one of my interns
Stay over
tested
there.
positive this week. One of my interns tested
fully
positive.
vaccinated or no?
Totally vaccinated.
Yeah.
He had to be one because he traveled for us in late June. Went to the ESPYs, traveled for us in late June. But also because he's about to move into his dorm, right?
Right.
And so you have to be, vaccinated to do that. And so I cried because I'm like, this is a kid who, for all intents and purposes, has done everything right.
Right.
And everyone around him is not doing what they need to do. And so what do you do with that? Like, you get your vaccination, you go out of your house for a second, and then you come back and you're like, boom.
The thing that drives me crazy, like a lot of this, is like the lack of, or the very strong perspective of, I know what I'm talking about. I've done my research. And then like, I'll just like do basic searching on like the CDC, and they're like, yo, none of this is true. Like, what are you talking about?
Wikipedia is not research, people. Wikipedia is not research.
No. Wikipedia would be better than just a random YouTube channel. Like, they're just like, I don't know, it's unraveling your DNA. I'm like, yo, that's not how that works. Like, it's not how it works.
That's not a thing.
Nah, they giving you COVID in the vaccine, and I'm like, yo, that's not even true.
They put a chip in your arm, Jay, so the government can keep track of you, because you know they can't do it through your fucking phone.
Right. Everybody got $1,000 goddamn supercomputer in their pocket. No, they gonna spend it.
Because I got 5G.
Yeah, I'm
I
like,
got cancer because I got 5G.
I like.
I don't even know what the G stand for. Get out of here.
Thank you,
Get out
thank
of
you.
here.
I'm not even sure I
Get out
know
of here.
it.
That's what it stands for. Get out of here.
You know, it's funny. I don't know if y'all follow the Shade Room, but I was.
I do
there.
not.
We're not supposed to acknowledge that, TR. We're not supposed to acknowledge that.
I mean, sometimes they do have some funny things I
See
see.
who
on
the
there.
young person is on the show.
Listen,
I love the Shade Room. That's where I get my news. Like, go ahead.
Jay, you follow the Shade Room?
I do not. I swear to God, I don't. Somehow, Shade Room articles make it to me, and I'm like, come on, man, I don't want to see this.
Well, if y'all want to see how young Black people are reacting to New York's vaccine mandate to basically do anything fun, unless you can just stay home if you want, they were not happy about it.
Good.
They called it overstepping their rights. Basically, a lot of the same talking points, and these are people who are like my age, like almost 30, who should know better and know about science. And
I mean,
like, we're young, but we're dying too. And
the thing is, there was a study that said that, or a report that said that 37% of young Black people in New York are vaccinated. 37%. That's insane.
yeah.
Listen, I lived
insane.
in New York for 21 years. I just moved back to DC in 2019. I was in New York for 21 years. I can see it.
Yeah. I'm not surprised, actually, but it's sad.
There's that, New York mentality.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of distrust. There's not a lot of the medical community going out into our communities to give proper information to people. There is a reporter or a journalist for the New York Times. She's on the editorial board of the New York Times. Black woman. She lives in Brooklyn. Her name is Mara Gay. I had her speak to my class several times over the past year. She had COVID and is still dealing with long-term COVID. And so she has been like a spokesperson for our community. Like, yo, I got this shit. It's not a joke. I mean, I was down and out for weeks, and she still has respiratory problems. Like, it's real. It's real.
I mean, we still have people who think it's not real, which I'm like, all right, in the beginning, not that I agreed with you, but in the beginning, okay. Yo, 600,000+ people have died in this country. You think they're just making this shit up? What the hell are you talking
about? Like, how you have people who at least aren't thinking about the folks around them. Like, I couldn't imagine going to go see like my grandparents in South Carolina, right? and possibly affecting.
So where's your family from in South Carolina?
Oh God, are we related?
yo, every Black person in South Carolina is related. So the answer is yes.
Where are they from?
Like the Sumter area, like just outside of Columbia.
Okay, so yeah, so my mom, my dad's from DR, my dad's from Dominican Republic, but my mom.
Oh shit, son.
What? Are you serious? What?
My dad's from Jamaica too.
All right, so different, but we got both island fathers, right? My mom's from Florence, South Carolina.
Wow. Yeah, I know exactly where that is.
Jay, this is called a diabetes cute.
We can leave, by the way. Mike and I will leave. You guys can just have a show about like one of those, Like you just find out you're related. They just pull the book out and be like, "Oh, my ancestors came from the slave coast, and mine from the Ivory Coast," and then they just travel and they figure it out.
Liz, did you know that type 1 diabetes is most likely passed on from father to child? We may be related.
See?
So the thing is,
See?
it wasn't
about
like
it.
that. It's my mom's side of the family that has it.
Diabetes.
I'm not ashamed to talk about this. My mom and I had a horrible relationship. And so when I was diagnosed, in the South, they call it sugar. They don't call it diabetes. Right. They call it sugar. Yep. So she was like, "How you get sugar?" I'm like, "Motherfucker, how you think I got it? I got it from your people." And I've had some bad episodes. It's a part of the growing process, learning process of diabetes. But I can't have, diabetes and COVID. That's just not a thing.
No. Meaning
not a thing.
I have friends with diabetes who've had it. Didn't seem fun. I mean, they're fine now, but they were like terrified.
No, thank you.
Yeah, I'm good.
Look, I don't have diabetes, but I don't want COVID just out of principle. Like I'm good. Like I don't need it.
But also, given that you still have a lot of Black communities who aren't getting that outreach, where is your sympathy meter for them? Are you still at 0, or you're like maybe a little bit? They got the education. Where do y'all stand?
I just get angry when they're boasting.
Don't be proud.
Yeah. It's to say it loud. I'm unvaccinated and I'm proud.
Oh, they call themselves the unvaccinated. I'm like, y'all are not a mark.
Yeah, like The Walking Dead. Okay.
Okay, Jay.
Okay.
So how many of you guys are Walking Dead fans or
no?
Have you seen an episode?
I have. That's why I'm not a fan. I've been.
I don't watch it anymore. After Glenn died, I stopped watching it. That was enough for me.
That was probably when
I don't want to talk about my good notes. I don't want to talk about why I don't watch that show.
The thing is,
just cut his arm off. God damn it.
People wonder how The Walking Dead happened. This is how it happened.
Right. Yeah. Somebody gets bit and they don't want to tell their friends. No, you feeling okay? No, I'm good. Why are you sweating, dog? You something wrong happened? Something bad happened? No, just stay next to me.
Then they bite you in the neck. And now you're a walker.
Nah, fuck that. Well, it was funny, like just today, we're recording this on Sunday, August 29th, but just today I retweeted, there was a doctor on like, I don't know, one of the news channels, CNN or something like that. He referred to patients, he's like an ICU doctor. He referred to the patients that he's seeing with COVID, these unvaccinated people with COVID, as the talking dead, because they are able to talk and communicate, but they can only communicate and continue on because they're on, because they're basically, they're hooked up, right? That's what's keeping them alive. The second they're unplugged, they will die, right? But they're just alive enough that they can communicate with them about what's happening. Like,
that is so sad.
That's fucking horrifying. And like, I really think that one of the big issues, especially in our community, because like, again, my sympathy for like conservative white people were like, it's not real. Fuck that. Zero. It's a zero.
Like
they are, yo. They are. Like, that should another warning to you. Like, if you're a Black person, like, I don't trust this vaccine. You see how many white people are dying from this shit? Like, hello?
Valentine, that on conservative radio host died.
Look at how, Herman Cain made the sacrifice.
Yo, there is a
Trump rave.
Yo, there is.
And now Jesse Jackson and his wife are hospitalized. They have COVID. Like, come on.
Now they were fully vaccinated, which is really fucking scary. But
right.
Yeah, but they're
why they're still alive, by the way.
100%. Yeah, Jesse Jackson apparently is doing better. He's still in the hospital, but he's like doing much better. His wife just got moved to the ICU, which is not good. I just saw that like yesterday. But the larger point here though is I don't know that I have a lot of sympathy for they're uneducated. That's horseshit to me. Like, look, that was fine in the beginning. It's not fine now, right?
There is fine during Miss Evers boys. It's
right.
Not fine
Right. It's not fine now. Like, this idea of like, I don't know what's in it. But you're like, hey, the new Baconator is out. I guess I'll eat 4 of those. Like, you don't know what's in that shit.
Let me take an edible. Hey, let me take an edible. Let me smoke some hookah. Like,
Right.
come on, y'all.
I mean, it depends on where you get it. But anyway,
Vaccinated though. But you're vaccinated though.
I am vaccinated and I get it from a proper dispensary. But
I just don't want,
like an
I don't want
adult,
these people to
like
get
an
mad
adult.
that they can't do fun things. Like I went out to, I was up in San Francisco last weekend, and to do anything, you have to show them proof of vaccination.
Give it
You
up.
do even to sit outside to eat. They're like,
Damn.
show us vaccinated.
Wow, good.
They are not playing.
Look,
they are not fucking around.
look,
And also, they've caught people with like fake vax cards, and
Oh.
they also check your ID and they scan your ID. So if you trying to basically do anything outside the house, have your card, have your ID, and make sure that shit is real. Otherwise, you're out.
Good.
I
Well,
also think that people forget that, we've been required to take other vaccinations or be vaccinated for other things
right.
our entire lives. There are countries that you cannot travel to pre-COVID
Right.
where if you're not vaccinated, you cannot get in. Like, this isn't a new thing. This isn't a new concept. And even before COVID, and it's a very sensitive subject because I'm not quite sure if he and his family are vaccinated. But I had a friend, so it would have been in 2019. His 3-year-old died of the flu. 3, almost 4-year-old died of the flu. No one in the family was getting a flu shot.
Wow.
And I'm just like,
Nope.
I interact with him, I follow him. I won't say I interact. I follow him because it's very devastating. I couldn't even, I have no
I can't
children,
imagine. I can't
but I
imagine.
could not imagine.
Nope.
Could not imagine. But I'm just like, and so that happened right before the pandemic. I'm like, folks, like COVID, flu, it doesn't care who you are.
Nope.
It
People
does
think they're-
not care.
People think they're invincible.
Until
Young
it's
people
them.
especially think they're invincible.
Until it's them.
Right. Like, I was having a conversation with somebody on Twitter who was an unvaccinated person. I said, look, like, one, I'm not nice to anybody. Like,
I'm not either.
no, I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, oh, you blocked me. Oh, I'm sad about it.
I'm not nice. I'm not nice.
No, but I was like, look, dude, you're being a fucking moron for this. But at the same time, I don't want to see a link from your ass talking about send money from my GoFundMe. Go fuck yourself. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that to my family or my friends or people. I couldn't like just go around basically raw dogging Delta variant and then like and then having to get all
Relax on your language. This is a family show.
Okay.
My gosh.
And then getting intubated, and then I can't imagine like my cousin having to tell you guys, hey,
Nah, she ain't make it, dog. She ain't gonna be on next week. Like, oh, come on.
because I couldn't imagine.
All right, we were gonna do Lakeview Terrace.
Like
She's been asking to do it.
and for I'm not a parent, but like for the parents out here who are just like, my freedom, like you are gonna destroy your children's lives. Your children will be fucked up forever because your family is gonna have to basically deal with everything
Pick up the pieces
that you left behind, including probably some of those medical bills that also people aren't talking about. I don't want that shit either.
This anti-vaxxer today, I can't remember his name. Proud anti-vaxxer, 30 years old.
Oh, the dude from Texas.
Died yesterday. 3 kids, pregnant wife.
Yep.
He had been on a ventilator for 3 weeks. I'm like, not only are you dead now and you aren't there for your wife and for your children, and she's about to have another kid, those medical bills are ridiculous. And so, of course, someone started to GoFundMe. I'm like, I'm not giving nothing. Go fund nothing.
Yeah.
Go fund nothing.
Yeah.
I'm mean when it comes to this.
Look, I mean, there is for folks who are on Reddit, there's a new Reddit subreddit called the Herman Cain Award. And it's just people like,
God damn.
Yo, Reddit can be brutal. Yeah, they really can be. But it's just all it is just people screenshotting all these stories of like, it's all fake, y'all. It's fake. No, don't let them do that. And then it's like, Billy died. Sorry, Billy. And it's, yeah.
They set Herman Cain up, man. Woo!
They were, Herman Cain, I'm sorry. Like I don't mean, well, I don't really care about Herman Cain,
Oh.
but when he died, it was funny, dark humor, funny to me because they were like
Jay was
treating
like, oh,
I mean, it was funny to me. I'm not gonna lie.
they said like, yeah, he's gonna be fine. Trump 2020, yeah, blah, blah. And then he died, and it's like,
Yeah, they stopped talking about him.
Trump never
did.
mentioned him again. They never mentioned him again.
Nope. Hope you're doing okay.
That look.
Yeah.
I have a political show. Look forward for folks who don't know, but we talked about that. Like the one thing that really pissed me off was that a black man was the first one to fucking sacrifice himself for that shit. The first major figure to sacrifice himself. That was ridiculous. And it's like, It's always us. And the second that shit happened, Republicans were like, who the fuck is Herman Cain? Good day. They didn't give a shit about him. They care. We got to get back on track though. So, Micah, take it away. If you remember where we were.
Caleb, I'll try to get this back. Caleb meets up with the group and is like, I'm in the army now, and the army gave me penicillin, and that shit work. And
Like, shut up, Caleb.
How old is Caleb supposed to be?
Stop creeping on that man.
He
Relax.
never aged. She aged. She aged, but he never aged. He never aged.
When he joined the army, I was like, "But you."
yeah, he's in his 20s, right? He's like,
Lawrence Fishburne was in his 20s in this movie? 20 what? 20 times what number? Come on.
You a little seasoned to be fighting against the Nazis, but okay.
Maybe
they
never
never
aged. He never aged. It was only Eunice.
And when he says that he got cured, Ms. Evers goes back and confronts the two doctors and was like, "Yo, this guy got penicillin and he's great. He's done. And
He's in the fucking army.
Right, he's in the army now." And they're like, "Well, some people." He's lucky. Some people, when they get it, they get like they get the Herxheimer reaction, and then they die. So we're not giving them to these guys. And she's like, what's the end goal? And like you said earlier, the end goal is autopsy, it's death. Like I'm trying to see what happens. So Brodus tries to talk to Evers. And he tries to justify his actions, saying that the study is going to prove that there's no difference between the races when it comes to disease. And that's bullshit, right? Like you can use any other method to point out that there's no difference between black bodies and white bodies when it comes to anything.
Here's an idea. Why don't you do an autopsy on one dead black guy and one dead white guy? You could just do that right then. There's plenty of dead people everywhere. It's not that hard.
And this is where she comes up with the hill analogy,
which is a great analogy, by the way.
It is. It's like, every time.
But she didn't say it with her chest. She didn't say it with her chest.
No, she didn't. She's like, every time somebody tells me like what I'm looking for is above that hill, I get to the top and there's just another hill waiting for me. And someone else says, well, it's above that one and it's above that one. And then you go so far where it's just like, well, fuck it. I'm here now. And I think that's the movie. I'm here. I might as well keep going.
Right.
And that is the mentality that she has as a nurse, right? Like throughout this movie. And I understand because I understand like that's her mentality. And that is supposed to be the way we are trying to empathize with her character. But at some point, I'm going to stop going up them hills, like, because I'm tired.
Right.
And the hill analogy, I mentioned the hill analogy because it comes back later later on in the movie.
Dr. Brodus is even like, well, we either climb the hill, we stay at the bottom. They like that's it for us. I thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting analogy because it's like, if we don't climb it, we stay at the bottom. Like, nah, dog, but that's not what the analogy is. The analogy is that the hill, it's a lie. Like, the whole thing is a lie. You're not actually it's like saying you got to keep walking up the escalator, but never making it to the top. Well, that's better than being at the bottom. No, it isn't. No. You're just tired. Like, you're not going anywhere. Like that doesn't make any sense, but it's like his misunderstanding of what the actual analogy is
It's
interesting.
Yeah.
It's an interesting perspective.
Like you said earlier, Caleb takes Willie to get a penicillin shot, but they've been blacklisted, literally, and figuratively, because, they're black.
Yes, thank you. That, by the way, that's a real thing that happened. That is a real thing that happened. So
right.
for people who are like, why didn't they just go down to Duane Reade? Like, nah, they couldn't.
Did you live in New York?
I've been to New York.
Okay, I was supposed to say
Duane
Duane
Reade's all over the
Reade.
place.
Yeah. I know Duane.
They're like Rite Aids all over.
Right.
But it's named after two New York figures. So
Yeah, no, it's an exclusively New York thing. Yeah, we're more of a CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens sort of town.
Please, People's Drugstore. Let's not, forget
People's
about People's Drugstore from back in the day.
I don't
I
know
was
that
like,
one.
what is People's Drugstore?
I don't know anything y'all are talking about. I'm sorry.
She never been to Epstein. She don't know none of that. Zayers.
No.
Don't know none of that.
I'm gonna have to Google
Zayers.
this.
God.
I'm gonna have to Google all
Yes,
this.
I'm gonna have to Google
Okay, now
this.
you're gonna talk about Bradley. You remember Bradley?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, shit.
That's fucking hilarious. Zayers. goddamn.
I'm sorry. I just
She's like, I'm searching right now. I don't see anything about Zayers on the
Y'all,
internet.
you miss nothing with Zayers. You miss nothing with that.
That is 100% true.
So at one point, Eunice goes to visit Ben, who is on his deathbed, and she delivers from the government a
That was
certificate of appreciation and $10
See.
Now, see, that's
why
how.
we have that's why we are not, empathizing or sympathizing with Eunice. That was some bullshit.
It was, and it just goes to show you how zapped of strength you get when you have syphilis at that stage. Because I'd have ripped that shit out of her hand. I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. Yo. What's this $10 going to do for me?
$1 for every year you
$1
play the program.
for every year.
Wow, a whole dollar? Oh no, the government is so nice. Come on, man. And then at the end, when they're like, they gave him 37,000, I'm like, 37 grand? Knock it off. I want $1 million.
37 grand in the 70s, yo. Like, that's still not.
That ain't no real money for this.
Not money, yo. That's all right. But Ben is grateful. He's grateful for everything that Eunice has done for him. And look, this scene is there, I think, again, this is more of that conflict that Eunice is having, because she can't she knows that this is wrong, but for some reason just feels like she can't. Well, one, she can't do anything about it, and two, I don't know. She breaks down and starts weeping to the point where she's like,
She
"Well, I'm
didn't
gonna
weep
do
hard
something."
enough. She did not weep hard enough.
Well, she at this point she's just like, you know what? I can't. Ben just died. I can't let Brian die. I'm gonna go steal some penicillin. And give it
That's
to
right.
Brian. And she goes over there and she gives it to him. Poor Brian's just out of his fucking mind. And at this point, he takes the penicillin. She's like, I'm gonna sit there for 12 hours, and if you're all right for 12 hours, then you should be good. I don't know how she figured that out, but just a guesstimate. But she wakes up the next morning, and poor Brian, out of his mind, drinks 32-ounce big gulp of turpentine. and
You're such an asshole.
So at this point, Brodus is condemning Miss Evers for stealing the penicillin. And he's like, well, you could have disgraced the Institute. And
was that the problem?
Yeah, that was a line.
Oh, I didn't want to do that.
He said, you know, there are people out there that want us to fail.
You
Yo,
have
this is
failed.
women?
You
This is
have failed.
But like at this point, like 200 dudes have died. We don't want to fail. We trying to get to 205? Like, what the fuck is the end game here?
And the broad drank like, I'm just like, he drank turpentine. Like, remember back in the day, and again, I don't think Tiara remembers this, but remember the green sticker with the
Mr. Yuck.
Yuck.
Yeah, Mr. Yuck.
Yes. So my dad was a handyman.
She's like, I don't know what this is. So they don't have Mr. Yuck? They don't have Mr. Yuck?
You used to put it on. You put it on bleach to make sure the kids don't drink it.
Everything.
Yeah, you put it on like the door of the cabinet that goes under the sink, so kids know, like, oh shit, Mr. Yuck, like, don't fuck around.
So
I don't know, whatever they showed you on Blue's Clues that was like, it's bad, like, I don't know.
We had tons of turpentine in our house.
What?
I didn't drink it. Like, I was just like, oh my God, his mind is gone. His mind is gone.
See?
And remember, he did a little ritual.
Yeah, no, he was ready to go. I mean, look, you guys, look, in fairness to Brian, and I know it's like, I'd like to be fair to Brian, is Brian drinking turpentine that much crazier than drinking horse dewormer, which is all the rage these days, right? Everybody's drinking ivermectin. Is there any?
Moonshine? How about just go get some moonshine?
Moonshine and turpentine do the same thing, and one tastes better. No, they do the same. Look, they strip paint off of.
They do not do the same thing.
They will strip. They will look. No, I said one tastes better. They both will strip paint off an old Buick, right? Like, get the fuck out of here. So it's fine. Just drink the moonshine. You'll feel better. But it's no different. Like that's the irony. Is like, as time changes.
I meant health-wise.
Nah, barely.
I'm still here.
Look.
I'm good off my moonshine.
Look, some people have drank moonshine and gone blind. It's barely better than turpentine. It's barely.
They didn't die within the hour.
Minutes.
Yeah, come on. Like, you might want to look more into the history of moonshine.
I'm still here for my moonshine. But yeah,
making it a tub.
I mean, he was even the first time that she saw him.
He was out of his mind. Yeah, he was out of his mind.
He was gone. He was gone.
But I mean, I would argue he was gone. I mean, obviously, but I would also argue, like I said earlier, Oba Babatunde's character by the end was like,
y'all just love saying his name.
I know, it's so good. It's so good. It's a good name. It's a great name. He was gone too, right? So like it's like the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? Like this guy out of his mind is like, I'm gonna drink turpentine. Like I'm joking, but I'm not joking. People are taking a horse dewormer, like horse doses of a drug, right? Yes, I know ivermectin has been, prescribed for humans as a dewormer, right? But like
someone died from it the other day. I saw an article.
A lot of people are having massive internal bleeding and intestinal issues and stuff like that. People are taking this shit, right? Because
get the vaccine, y'all.
Right, like I just didn't feel great for a day.
I don't know what's in the vaccines. How to take a horse dewormer?
What's in the hover? What's in that?
Like, oh, this for goats? I'll drink it.
Here's the thing. If I get hospitalized, just give me Regeneron, which is another experimental drug.
Right. So just give me, monoclonal antibodies. That's all right. Like, you guys know the FDA is working on. All right. You don't know. All right. That's cool. Don't worry about it.
It doesn't matter.
Like, that the FDA also regulates the horse dewormer. No, you don't know that? That's cool. Whatever. Go ahead and drink it. Drink a lot of it.
I don't want to get hospitalized. Like, I have a DNR. Like, so I don't want any extra. Like, I'm trying not to get to that point.
Yeah.
So
avoid it at all costs. So I like this whole idea of like that guy drinking turpentine is crazy. I'm like, it's not that crazy.
So sad.
It is. And then I read all these stories of these people like, how do I get my hands on the horse paste from Tractor Supply? And I'm like, Brian wasn't that off. Like, he wasn't. So, and there's a bunch of people doing it.
He had an excuse, right? Like, he was losing his mind.
Oh no, they don't have an excuse. They just dumb as shit. Like,
just dumb.
And it's 2021. You should know better.
Miss Evers testifies that even though she knows she can't help the men, she sticks around because she wants to comfort them. I don't know. She's a very interesting character, man.
Do we think she's still a virgin?
Yeah.
Probably.
I mean, she was still waiting on Laurence Fishburne. I mean, he had his shot. and she didn't give it up. So
I assume she was a virgin to the very, very end.
damn, that's the saddest part of the whole movie.
Yeah, right. I mean, she didn't even try even after he got the penicillin shot. You know?
Yeah, she'd be like, I'm mad at you, but like, come on now. Like, you all clean shaven and shit. Let's do it.
I mean, look, he did, like, he came back from the war and
Try
they
to
were
make it happen.
like, come on now, I want to be with you. Come on now, I want to be with you.
Like such an old black man shit. Like, look, all right now. Stop all the bullshit.
I can't say I love you, but all right, I want to be with you. All right,
I ain't no
came
punk.
back for you.
I wasn't rubbing that liniment on those guys for nothing. All right. Come on now.
And she's like, well, why don't you stay? And he was like, I am not staying my ass in fucking Macon County, Alabama. Are you crazy?
He said, I'm not even staying for you.
He was like, I'm going to Chicago.
I love that dude was like, yo, I wouldn't even stay for you. Get the fuck out. Like, and I love you, but no, hell no. I'm out of here.
So what did y'all think when he called her out at the end?
Valid.
Conversation.
It was valid. It was 100%
Yeah.
valid.
I love
It's
it.
like
man.
the penicillin.
She didn't
Yeah,
say that.
she said, what did she say? She was like, well, he said, tell me the truth. And she was like, well, you're part of my government study. And I don't know, the doctors know what's best. And he said, what's best was the penicillin. And then just drop the fucking mic.
Boom.
Just
Like Obama. Boom.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Boom.
And
Wow.
yeah, I think that character needed to be called out. I think that character needed to be challenged by someone that she cares for. I just wish it was from the right person, right? Like, I wish it was from Joe Morton's character. God, I'm so disappointed in Joe Morton's character. In this
Daddy Pope. Daddy Pope.
God damn it.
He ain't gonna. Daddy Pope ain't never gonna save a life.
Nah, that really ain't his thing.
I think the last time he saved a life was in Speed with Keanu. That was in the 90s.
Jesus.
That has been a long run for him. Are you gonna help anybody? No. I hate this. Where's my own paramilitary organization and scandal? I can kill people. Like, all right, that's fine.
So what do we want the people to get from this movie?
I mean, here's the thing. In the end, well, hold on, actually, because there's Michael, you've got at least one more thing you were talking about. Yeah, because they were black part.
So at the very end, she testifies that 412 men were studied and 127 were left. And we find out that Willie and Caleb survived. And it is at this point where she insists that what was done was for the greater good. And the senator is like, well, who benefited from this greater good, right? Like, if the subjects were white, do you think the proper treatment would have been given? And she's just like, yeah, of course. Of course they wouldn't have even, this wouldn't have even been thought of if the subjects were white.
Right.
But because they were black, nobody gave a damn. And and then the movie ends and it says that the survivors of the study eventually received treatment and financial compensation after the Senate investigated it in the 70s. And
Clinton apologized in the 90s.
Right. And Clinton apologized 20 years later.
The first black president had to do it. I'm kidding. Relax.
Stop it.
Relax. I hate that term. It's like, he's not.
So the movie is pretty much over at this point. And look, I know there are going to be people on the YouTube comments that'll be like, see, this is why I'm not taking the vaccine. Because
You're an idiot.
Because the doctors are in on it, right?
Did they listen to this whole conversation and they're still saying
That's what they come. Yeah.
No, I hope they do. This is me telling you. This is not anyone else. I think you're a fucking idiot. I do. If you can take it and there's nothing wrong with you and you're not immunocompromised or whatever, you're an idiot if you don't. You're not. You are. And I don't want you to, I want you to stay a listener, but don't be stupid. Be smart.
They ain't gonna stay listening too long if they catch COVID.
Yeah. Oops.
So do you guys think that Miss Evers, deserved an ass whooping?
Oh, damn.
Yes.
Ooh, Ciara, there you go. Yes.
I don't know. I mean,
She She got blood on her hands. She has bodies.
She does. She does. And it's, she's got to live with that. Right. And it's,
Right.
I mean, she's such a product. Like, I want to be mad at Eunice. I really do, because I think it's like, you can't possibly be that stupid, but she is manipulated by a system that is set up to make
She has
us
to lie to herself a lot.
right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
That's because 40 years is a long time to sit back and watch. At this point, hundreds of people either die or
who you considered your friends.
Yeah.
You considered your
40
friends.
years and still a virgin. Like, what did
Well,
you really get out of this, Miss Evers? What
Well,
did you
maybe
really
if
get out of
maybe
this?
if she had let Laurence Fishburne post penicillin blow her back
right, a
out,
little bit.
she would have said some shit. Right? Just exclaim it to the world. It was so good, y'all. Let me tell you. But it's just, I mean, it's just really, you know, in all seriousness, like, what you see is a person who is broken by a system that is designed to break people, right?
Right.
It is designed to treat us like children. It is designed for us to not look out for our own, right? Like,
Right.
we are literally saying, yes, Eunice is not looking out for her own in a time where we have a ton of black people who are not looking out for their own. Like, it's not that crazy to think that somebody can be manipulated by this destructive system into believing something that actually hurts their own people. All these people yelling Tuskegee, 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 I'm not going to take it. But taking the shit home, being asymptomatic and taking it home to their grandmas or their kids or their husbands or wives or friends or whatever, and those people dying from it are doing the same thing that Eunice did.
Yeah.
Except they are somehow even more willfully ignorant because there is a cure that everyone can go and take. Like, me going to get the vaccine helps a ton of people in society as I'm walking around, the limited amount of walking around that I do. It is helping a ton of people, but it is such a little thing for me to do. Like, it is such a little, oh, my arm, 2 days later, I feel fine. Like, that's it. It is like, Americans should be all in on this because we love to talk about how big and grand we are and do the minimum amount of work. This is it. This is a perfect example of how to do that.
No, but instead we want to rely on the American healthcare system to get us through this. You know, the worst healthcare system in the.
TR, I don't know about you, but when I went to get vaccinated both times, first shot, second shot, the young lady who was administering the vaccination, you know, she was trying to, you know, calm me down about the actual needle. I was like, girl, do you know how many shots I take in a day? Like,
I'll be
that's
fine. Me too.
nothing. I was like, that's nothing.
Yeah, it is kind of funny because that same thing happened to me. I was like, I am not afraid of needles. It's not.
She put it in my arm. I was like, I don't really feel anything. I do this all the time. This is fine.
All day, every day.
Your black skin is too tough. for
Oh,
that
there you
man.
go.
Yeah, did it just break? Did the needle just bend up like Superman?
I think it did.
Yeah, she was just like, no, I'm good. You got the black needle? You got the one made of kryptonite? Come on, let's go. Let's do that one. But I do think, like, Eunice is a complex character, but ironically, I think that for every black person who refuses to wear a mask and who refuses to get vaccinated and has no real reason for doing those things, except for they just don't want to, they're the Eunice of their time.
Yeah, I mean,
And in a
also,
way,
like,
even worse. It's almost more malicious.
and for these people, it
Are
requires.
they the Eunice or are they the Brodus?
Actually, that's probably a better
Yeah.
analogy. Yeah, they're more the Brodus.
It requires them to be in a state of denial because
Yes.
when you do give it to someone, they're not gonna take responsibility for it, or at least like they may feel some sort of guilt, but they won't admit it to themselves.
Right.
So you have to be in a constant state of denial to operate as if it's still 2019 before COVID
Right.
even popped into our lives.
Yeah, and by the way, I think we're going to be dealing with this for years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is the new flu, man. Like, it's
Yep.
not going anywhere, and people aren't. It's not going anywhere, and it's not going to die down for a long time.
Oh,
because people
Micah,
just don't
I've
want
also
to.
heard that excuse too. Like COVID's
What?
not going anywhere, so why get vaccinated? I've heard
All
that.
right,
I've
yo,
heard
all right.
Yo, that literally doesn't make any sense.
Really?
it doesn't make any sense.
Really?
Yo, it's more deadly than the flu. Like, people are like, it's not more deadly than the flu. Yo, when's the last time the flu killed 600,000 Americans?
In a year.
In a year. Come on.
Right.
That's nuts. What are you talking about? The flu normally kills very old people or very young people. Like that's the vast majority of people who died of the flu.
But
right?
even with that, like, remember how the Republicans were so quick to, sacrifice the old folks? Well,
yeah, people forget that shit. Hey, just get out there and just die for our country. I'm like,
what?
Nana?
You want your Mima to die?
They don't get no. They want your Mima to die.
Right.
They don't give a shit about. That's the thing is, it's not about
theirs.
theirs.
Mine is gone. Thank goodness. She would have been a good COVID person.
So yeah, I mean, like if we are talking about loving, just our community, right? Let other communities deal with what they got to deal with. That's on them. Drink your horse, dewormer. I don't give a shit. But for us, black people, if we're talking about taking care of black people, we're talking about loving our community. We're talking about protecting us and building us up. You can't do that by saying, fuck this shit. I'm not getting vaccinated. This is a quintessential part of protecting your community. It is.
Also, too, we know, the black community really believes in that it takes a village mantra. And so there are a lot of elderly people who are raising children.
That is correct.
Yep.
And so we have to be, careful. We have to be cautious. We have to, protect our own. Like, don't put your grandma, don't put your nana out there like that. And they raising your kids and you out in the street, unvaccinated, bringing shit home. Like that's just horrible.
Right. Even if they're vaccinated, because you can have a breakthrough case, right? We talked about Jesse Jackson.
Like I said, my guy at work, he's vaccinated.
Right.
I have a friend in Colorado this week, vaccinated. She was on oxygen yesterday. Like it's people. I think another thing too, people don't understand viruses and how they mutate.
They have no idea.
And how the flu this year is not last year's flu, is not the flu from 2 years ago.
Like I get vaccinated every year.
Exactly. Like they're different strains. People don't, even though they consider themselves to be online experts and doctors, they don't understand all of this. So I don't know. I think I'm probably going to be in my house for another year, unfortunately. All right, just me and my black cat, Remy cat, whatever.
Look,
life.
Yeah, but don't look. You can't trust that cat. That cat tried to give you COVID last time. And that's your words. That's not mine.
My cat is ride or die. Like he's mean, but he's like his mama. He got that from his mama.
That's fine.
But yeah, it's sad because I think people thought we were just going to be normal. Immediately after some people thought we were going to be normal immediately after the vaccinations. So they're reckless now. They're out, at concerts and festivals, no masks, doing all this stuff. No. Howard, started school last week. They had a couple of incidents where everyone was on the yard, no masks, doing all this stuff, singing Keisha Cole. Like what?
I mean, look, but there is, not to, push those things down because those are very valid, and I agree. I'm not. Look, I don't need to be in a crowd of nobody. Get out of here. I don't like anybody that much. But like Lollapalooza happened in Chicago a couple weeks ago, right? And it was like, and it was like 30,000 people.
Vaccination?
Yeah, you had to be vaccinated or you had to have a negative COVID test like within 24 hours of the thing. Yeah. By the way, have to have a negative COVID test. That's not enough for me. I'm going to need you to be vaccinated. I don't care. Like, but you can exclude a bunch of people. Don't give a shit. Fuck them. Anyway, but people were there and they were, vaccinated and a lot of people did not have masks on. Like the vast majority of them didn't have masks. They did not have a massive outbreak from Chicago, which is amazing, by the way.
It was small. It was like, 20
That should make people even more scared.
Well, to me, it shows the efficacy of being vaccinated because you compare that to Sturgis in South Dakota, right? The biker rally. They had and they were like, I ain't getting vaccinated because I drive a motorcycle without a helmet. So fuck rules and intelligence. And those people had a massive outbreak. And now South Dakota is in a world of trouble because so many people contracted it.
It should be even more scary because you can't monitor, you can't predict what the outbreak is going to be.
Right. Well, but what I'm saying is like Sturgis, they had no regulations, right? Lollapalooza did. So like, it doesn't mean that vaccinations are perfect. What it does mean is you can keep down the amount of people getting this stuff or ending up in the hospital. And that's the point, right? Like, just look, man, I don't want anybody to have to die in an ICU or have to say goodbye to your family over Zoom. That's one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever heard in my entire life. Or kids, or elderly people, or people in their 20s or 40s or 50s. Nobody should be dying from this shit unnecessarily. Look, those 500,000 people or 400 and something thousand people who died before the vaccine, there's nothing we could do, right? Like, besides like the government actually like acknowledging it and people wearing masks. But as far as people, like there were, like if we had a president who wasn't a piece of garbage at the time, we would have still lost at least 200,000 people. That's a guarantee. But you know, the situation was what it was, and it's unfortunate, and a lot of people died. But once the vaccine is there, and now it's readily available, it doesn't cost anything, and then shit in Baltimore City, they will come to your house.
Y'all.
No,
It's
in Baltimore,
y'all.
they will come to your house. People are like, I don't have
free,
time.
y'all.
Yes, you do. Yo, just call. I'm home at 8.
Coming to my house.
Yeah. So, I mean, right. They gonna try to steal something. You don't got nothing. Relax. So there are no more excuses. If you can get vaccinated, please get vaccinated. Like, if you learn nothing from this episode, I know people are like, oh, we'd like a devil's advocate perspective. No, fuck a devil's advocate perspective. The devil advocate perspective is you're dead. Like, that's the devil's advocate
And this
perspective.
is
Gonna
a
meet the devil in
panel
real
of,
life.
this is a panel of black folks telling y'all.
Right. Like, I'm not giving you the like,
Wait,
well, I guess
is
I'm not
every-
going to take
wait,
it.
Is,
No.
is everyone on the Zoom call vaccinated?
Yes.
Anyone here not vaccinated? Okay.
No, I mean,
Just making sure.
I'm not
that,
taking it.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
there was no
Yeah.
dissent here. I'm staring at
No,
Micah
I'm-
because he's the only one who's not saying anything.
Micah refuses to get vaccinated.
Micah, what?
No, I
Micah, what?
have my.
Nah,
I have my.
he lied.
No, I have a 2-year-old. Get out of here.
Okay.
Of course.
All right. That's good.
I have a cat. Of course I'm
There you go.
vaccinated.
Yeah, I'm vaccinated. Micah's vaccinated. Elizabeth's vaccinated. Tiara.
Drive the Waldorf to get my vaccination. Are you serious?
Yeah, that was like mad far. Yeah, that was crazy. I mean, I did get vaccinated in a building across the dirt road from a building that was called the Pig Palace, I think it was. Yeah. So look, you do what you got to do to get vaccinated.
I'm glad you threw a vaccine. I am just going to let everyone else here in the Bay Area do all the work for me, and I'm going to rely on herd immunity and just go on about my
Yeah,
life.
you be good though. You
I
be
can't
good.
live in fear. I can't live in fear.
I refuse to wear a mask. Okay, Busta
No.
Rhymes. Having
No, I
trouble
got
breathing on his
I
own.
live
Get out of
next to
here.
a hospital. I just went there. It was like 2 minutes. Got my shot both times. Left.
Oh, in DC back in the spring, like a lot of the people in Maryland, which is why I don't like your folks. A lot of people in Maryland who worked in DC were coming in and getting vaccinations. DC did not get a lot of vaccinations early on. And so they were coming in saying, oh, well, we work in the city, so we should get vaccinated.
Yeah, that's
there was a
fucked up.
shortage. Luckily for me, you know, one of my high school friends, he worked in a position where he had access to vaccinations. He's like, okay, come on, Newman, let's go. Let's do this. I was up so early, ready. Like, yes.
It's like a brand new day.
Yes.
Look.
Yes.
I mean, look, at this point, it's readily available. We are literally, as a country, sending them over to countries that don't have it. Like, there's no excuse. Like, look, all I can say is this. If you're not going to get vaccinated and you don't want to wear a mask, stay ass
Stay
in the
home.
house. Stay ass in the house.
Stay
Don't talk
your
about
ass
you need to
home.
be out. You don't need to be out.
Stay your ass home. Get out of my
Yeah.
face.
And don't just yell
and don't-
Tuskegee. Please don't just.
Don't complain. And also, like, don't complain about not being able to do fun things.
Yeah.
Like, either show proof of vaccination or get takeout. That's also still an option.
I
Get it
mean,
delivered.
folks are like, I should be able to fly. I'm gonna get in a metal tube with your filthy ass for 5 hours? No,
Listen, I
never.
haven't been on a plane since summer of 2019. It has hurt my spirit. I'm a journalist. I travel all the time. I love going to see new places. I haven't been anywhere.
Nope.
It's another reason why I'm pissed off at people. Like, you are affecting my livelihood. And I do get jealous because I do have I have 2 friends that are in Greece right now. Good for them. I don't feel comfortable doing that. And it's because everyone around me is not doing their part.
Yeah, because we live in a country with
Man,
unlimited freedom.
What is it like to travel abroad and do things?
You remember those times?
My
It's been so long.
My Finnish dad celebrated his 70th birthday last year. I cried like a baby because I couldn't be there.
Yep.
We can't get into Canada. Even if I wanted to go there last year, Europe was off limits, unless it was special circumstances. So I'm just like, if everyone would do their part, we wouldn't be in this position.
Yeah.
Right now.
Like I see a lot of unvaccinated people talking about that. Like, I just want to go back to normal. We're waiting on you. We're waiting. It's not you waiting on us. We're waiting on you. Could you just drink your goddamn horse medicine and just end it so we can all move on? Please. That's not horse medicine. That's not horse medicine. That's a different type of medicine, though.
It's absolute vanilla. That's what it is.
Oh boy. Good Lord. All right. That's a rough night. Or a great night. I don't know. I don't drink. I think it's wrong.
Okay. All right. We don't need to tell any more lies on this podcast.
You think is wrong? Like, what's wrong?
That is a joke. He is,
Are you kidding me? I love scotch.
I saw your wine glass, bruh. I saw your wine glass.
This is fruit juice. Get out of here.
Very much the most uppity uppity alcohol drinker I've ever met.
That's probably correct.
Until you met me, Micah.
Well,
Until you met me.
all of you three are peas in a pod.
I don't know what you're talking about. You leave me out of this.
That's true. You drink cheap liquor. We've seen your choices.
I have a good bottle of Trader Joe's red wine.
Trader Joe's? They sell alcohol.
Yeah, my Trader Joe's.
Yeah, they do.
sell
They do.
liquor, They
Did
sell
it
wine. They sell
did it
beer.
come in the carton? The cardboard carton?
Maybe. Get the job done.
They get the job done. Yo, Elizabeth's face when you said Trader Joe's like, oh,
No,
okay.
they sold alcohol.
They surely
Yeah.
do. They have they have a whole department of just nothing but wine, liquor, and beer.
Yeah. In California, they absolutely do. In Virginia, they do. Absolutely. Not in Maryland.
DC.
Yeah, not in Maryland.
Yeah, no.
Sad. All right. I think that's it for us. Elizabeth, thank you.
It's 11 o'clock, y'all. Woo, woo.
That's about right for us. Elizabeth, thank you for coming in. I'll let Micah
Thank you
do.
for having me.
Yeah, I will let Micah do your outro because he knows, he gave you the rundown. But this is episode 205 for Miss Evers Boys. Thank you, everybody. So, Micah, take it away.
Be sure to check out Elizabeth on the Truth, Lies, Shenanigans podcast on TLSshow.com.
Truth, lies, shenanigans.
I like
It's
the
very
underbeat.
catchy. The theme song. It's very catchy. It's just that, but it's very catchy. They do a live show every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And their show is very good. They talk basically about like hot topics. And each of the four guests have their own unique opinions on said topics. So it's a very entertaining show. I listen to it on my podcast feed, but you can listen to them live.
Thank you, Micah.
The beauty of doing a live show is that they will take responses from the listening audience, so you can interact with them in real time. So check it out.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you guys next week for another preview episode for episode 206. Later.
See ya.
Good night. Boop, boop, boop. Get vaccinated.
Please. You're watching the Black on Black Cinema YouTube channel. Make sure you check out our full reviews of black movies, past and present. And every other week, we do a preview episode where we talk about a random topic that affects the black community.